Responding to that, saying, quote, "The university will not surrender its independence or relinquish its constitutional rights. Neither Harvard nor any other private university can allow itself to be taken over by the federal government."
That's Harvard's response after the Trump administration froze $2.2 billion in federal funding, demanding changes that critics say reek of authoritarian overreach. The battle lines are drawn. Free speech, academic freedom, and the future of higher education are on the line. A political showdown is erupting between Donald Trump and one of the world's most powerful institutions, Harvard University. And now Harvard is fighting back. If you care about education, democracy, or the creeping reach of federal power, you're going to want to watch this. Subscribe now for more unfiltered, high-stakes analysis. It all started with a federal task force supposedly formed to combat anti-Semitism on college campuses. But the demands it sent to Harvard way beyond that. We're talking about dismantling diversity programs, auditing hiring and teaching practices, appointing federal officials to monitor ideological balance, forcing leadership changes. And when Harvard said no, boom, the Trump administration froze $2.2 billion in funding.
Because this is a clear, unquestionable violation of First Amendment rights.
It's not just a policy dispute, it's a constitutional crisis in the making. The administration claims this is all about combating anti-Semitism, citing the wave of protests around the war in Gaza and university responses. But Crespo isn't buying it.
That's exactly right. Look, I've spent my professional life fighting racism and intolerance in the United States. Anti-Semitism is vile
and the demands prove it.
It's like trying to appoint a federally named oversight official to do an audit of every course, every department at Harvard to see if we have ideological.
That's not protecting Jewish students, that's dictating curriculum. It's not just Harvard either. Columbia University faced similar pressure and caved. They banned masks. They revised their Middle East Studies curriculum. They complied. Harvard so far is the only one saying, not on our watch. Let's be crystal clear. This is about controlling what America's top schools teach, say, and fund. Crespo calls it what it is.
In countries across the world, when there are efforts to try to make an authoritarian play in government. Institutions that are essential to civil society, like the press, like the courts.
And if Harvard folds, you better believe every smaller university will follow, especially the ones without billion-dollar endowments. But Harvard isn't backing down.
Private university can allow itself to be taken over.
And that's not just rhetoric. They filed a lawsuit alleging violations of free speech, academic freedom, university independence. And Harvard's legal argument is airtight. The Trump administration is demanding ideological purity under the guise of protecting students. But their own task force leadership has openly stated this is about
create ideological rebalancing.
Which means if you don't teach what we want, we'll bankrupt you. If freezing $2.2 billion wasn't enough, Trump allies are already raising the stakes.
Schools that persist in explicit, unlawful discrimination under the guise of equity will not only have their endowments taxed, but through budget reconciliation, I will advance a measure.
That's not oversight, that's economic warfare. And it's coming from a playbook we've seen before. Use federal funding as leverage, bypass Congress, and demand compliance or else. The clearest example?
Committed, the White House said, to implementing the changes they want to see.
That's a direct quote from the Trump administration's list of demands. It's not just about anti-Semitism anymore. It's about reshaping higher education into a political echo chamber. And here's the kicker. Crespo and others warn that this isn't an isolated move.
Countries across the world, when there are efforts to try to make an authoritarian play in government. Institutions that are essential to civil society, like the press, like the courts, like the legal profession, and universities are the first to come under attack.
In a panel discussion, CNN correspondents laid out the full strategy.
Yeah, I mean, why slog through a legislative process that you don't know how it's going to end when you can just do it yourself? And I think this is so...
And that's exactly what's happening. By using executive power and back-channel pressure, Trump's team is trying to do what Congress can't, gut academic freedom from the top down. But this time, they hit a wall, Harvard.
Get their head around, and Harvard being the first school to say no is a fascinating moment.
Even CNN's Gabby Birnbaum noted.
We'll see, but I would imagine gives permission for some smaller universities, those with endowments that aren't as large.
Because if Harvard folds, there's no one left to lead the charge. But if Harvard stands firm and wins, it could trigger a national resistance from every college under fire. Even Democrats are realizing what's at stake.
If Harvard had capitulated, I really fear for what next year would be.
House Majority Leader Clyburn said, "This is more than policy. It's a stress test for democracy. And right now, Harvard is the only one refusing to bend. Harvard is taking a stand. Now the question is, who else will? Drop a comment. Should the government control what schools teach? Share this video if you care about academic freedom, free speech, and the right to think freely. Subscribe now, because this fight isn't over. It's just beginning."